This has been the most extraordinary week in Devin Nunes' career, and it's only Wednesday. On Monday, he chaired an historic hearing in the House of Representatives that was devastating to the President of the United States. The FBI director and the director of the National Security Agency told the House Intelligence Committee that the president lied when he tweeted that President Obama had wiretapped Trump Tower and wiretapped Donald Trump. Devin Nunes, as the Republican chairman of that committee, did not offer one word of defense of the Republican president's tweet. Not one word. No Republican member of that committee defended the president. They almost all tried to change the subject to a completely unrelated matter. They expressed concern about leaks to the Washington Post that revealed that Trump National Security Advisor Michael Flynn had lied about his conversations with the Russian ambassador, for which Flynn was then fired. Only, of course, when the Washington Post exposed that Donald Trump had known about those lies for 2 full weeks. That hearing went very, very badly for Donald Trump. Not a single Republican defended him. They did more defending of Michael Flynn. And then today, Chairman Nunes, apparently having obtained some new information about surveillance that incidentally picked up information about people working in the Trump campaign, possibly even Donald Trump, decided to walk that information straight into the place filled with people being investigated by the FBI for possible contacts with the Russian government or Russian agents during and after the presidential campaign. Devin Nunes took that information straight to the White House and straight to President Trump, who we discovered in Devin Nunes' own hearing on Monday is himself being investigated by the FBI for possible contacts during the campaign with Russia or Russian agents. No one in the Congress, no one in Washington had ever seen anything like what we saw today. The best-run committees in the House and Senate are led by Democrats and Republicans who share important information with each other cooperatively. The senior Republican and the senior Democrat do their best to keep each other aware of the committee's business. The intelligence committees have a very special obligation to do that, because they're not passing partisan legislative bills. In the intelligence committees, there is no such thing as partisan intelligence, or there isn't supposed to be. It is both in the tradition and the practice of the intelligence committees that the chair of that committee share crucial new information with the senior member of the opposing party on that committee. They don't have to share it with the entire committee. In this case, just the top Democrat, Adam Schiff. Today, Adam Schiff was stunned by what his chairman did.
The chairman will need to decide whether he is the chairman of an independent investigation into conduct which includes allegations of potential coordination between the Trump campaign and the Russians, or he is going to act as a surrogate of the White House because he cannot do both. And unfortunately, I think the actions of today throw great doubt into the ability of both the chairman and the committee to conduct the investigation the way it ought to be conducted.
Republican Senator John McCain was shocked by what Chairman Nunes did today and said he now thinks the House Intelligence Committee is not capable of doing their job and that a special committee should be appointed.
What this is now really, Greta, is a requirement for a select committee. I believe that there's a better relationship in the Intelligence Committee in the Senate between Senator Warner and Senator Burr, but this just shows a tremendous chasm between the two senior members of the House Intelligence Committee.
Republican Senator Lindsey Graham said he could not understand why Chairman Nunes would rush down to the White House. Here is what Chairman Nunes said he told the president.
This is information that was brought to me that I thought the president needed to know about incidental collection, where the president himself and others in the Trump transition team were clearly put into intelligence reports that ended up at this White House and across a whole bunch of other agencies.
The question everyone in Washington is asking is, why did he do it? Why did he do it? You just heard him say that the information he brought to the White House was already known in the White House. He meant the Obama White House. But what made him think that none of that information was transferred to the Trump White House? And more importantly, what made him think it was his job to serve that information to the Trump White House? One of the answers, just one of the possible many answers, one of those answers is Paul Ryan. Donald Trump is the second person that Devin Nunes gave that information to today. The first was Paul Ryan, his boss in the House of Representatives. And Paul Ryan then told Chairman Nunes to bring it to the president, to completely bypass his committee, to completely ignore the tradition and practice of sharing that with the ranking member of his committee, Adam Schiff. Just run it right down to the White House. And so Paul Ryan left Devin Nunes wide open to accusations that he was running down to the White House to offer some political protection for the damage his committee did to the president on Monday. And the White House immediately tried to use the information exactly that way.
Do you feel vindicated by Chairman Nunes coming over there?
I somewhat do. I must tell you, I somewhat do. I very much appreciated the fact that they found what they found.
Here is the most important single reason that Devin Nunes did what he did today. He is a 43-year-old man who grew up on a big family farm in California that's been in his family for generations, went to community college, then got a bachelor's degree in agriculture at California Polytechnic State University in San Luis Obispo, worked his way into the good graces of the very powerful congressman representing his district, who was the Republican chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, who then retired, leaving an opening for Devin Nunes to win a seat in the House of Representatives, where he has stayed faithfully close to the leadership of John Boehner and now Paul Ryan, who made him the head of the Intelligence Committee because the supply of intelligence in the Republican House of Representatives is so low that they do not have enough capable chairmen to go around. And so Devin Nunes, with no military experience, with no experience working in the intelligence community, Devin Nunes, the congressman from the overwhelmingly Republican farming district 200 miles north of Los Angeles, is in way over his head. Way over his head. That's what he showed everyone today. Anyone in Washington who didn't know that already knows it now. If Devin Nunes was trying to help the president today, he did a terrible job of it because he's in way over his head. You can't help the president by making your investigation of Trump campaign contacts with Russia look rigged. In other words, you can't help the president in a situation like this by looking like you're trying to help the president. And a smart chairman, an experienced chairman, would know that. Devin Nunes hurt the president today by looking like the president's errand boy. And he hurt the integrity of the congressional investigative process. And he added to the image of chaos surrounding the president and the congressional Republicans as they stumble toward a vote this week on their most important legislation so far, repeal of the Affordable Care Act. And as they desperately try to change the subject from Russian influence on Donald Trump, Russian influence on Paul Manafort, Russian influence on Michael Flynn, who worked in the Trump White House for 3 weeks, while they desperately try to change the image of Donald Trump being Vladimir Putin's errand boy, Devin Nunes runs down to the White House and creates another scandal within the scandal. The picture of the chairman who was supposed to be investigating this case running down to the White House to help out in any way he can the people being investigated, looking like Donald Trump's errand boy, and doing it because squeaky clean Paul Ryan told him to. That's the image Paul Ryan has always wanted for himself, a squeaky clean politician who only cares about policy. But Paul Ryan's in over his head this week, too. He has never tried to manage the passage of major legislation as the Speaker of the House before. And he is so far doing a terrible job of it, with an open revolt among his own members who show no fear of him whatsoever. And in the midst of the chaos of that legislative procedure, Paul Ryan dispatched Devin Nunes down to the White House because Paul Ryan is in over his head, too. He is the only Speaker of the House in history who has had to deal with the president of his party, who he is working with every day, being the subject of an FBI investigation. Paul Ryan has a much worse job than the impossible job that John Boehner had as Speaker of the Republican House, because Paul Ryan has Donald Trump in the White House, and John Boehner had Barack Obama in the White House. And tonight, Paul Ryan is in way over his head, just like Devin Nunes and just like Donald Trump. Joining us now, Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell. He is a member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. And Congressman, I just have to ask you, how long did it take for the shock to wear off? Because the traditions of the way your committee operates, as you know, it's a very strong bipartisan history of the operations of that committee.
Lawrence, I'm still shocked. This committee for the past 3 years for me has been the most fulfilling thing I've done in Congress, because it's a place you go to find bipartisanship to make the most important decisions. And today our chairman betrayed the independence that our committee must show during one of the most trying times in American history. He should have shared this with the Intelligence Committee first. He never should have shared it with a president whose campaign is under federal criminal investigation. And now I think more than ever, the case has been made that we need an independent, bipartisan commission to get to the bottom of exactly what happened.
Are you at the point of actively wanting to give up on your committee's ability to proceed?
I actively want to find out how we were so vulnerable, how the Russians were able to attack us, whether any U.S. persons on the Trump campaign were involved, and most importantly, how do we get out of this mess so this never happens again? I'm very disappointed in our chairman, and I think we need to take this outside of Congress to depoliticize it, declassify as much as possible, and debunk the countless myths out there that the president continues to perpetuate.
You and Devin Nunes both represent California. You have more ways of running into him and doing business with him than just on the Intelligence Committee. What is it about him, you think, that allowed where he allowed himself to get drawn into this mess this way? What did he miss? You know the person. Why didn't the person you know turn to Congressman Schiff and make the right move?
I'm puzzled, Lawrence, because I've seen Devin Nunes be a leader on this committee. We passed a bipartisan cybersecurity bill. We were able to pass a Intelligence Reauthorization Act to make sure our intelligence services had everything they needed. And that was Devin Nunes on his best day, and we're not all as good as our best day. But now what he's done today has put our investigation on life support. And today, so far, is his worst day. So we don't judge people on their best days. We don't judge them on their worst days. I'm going to judge him on what he does tomorrow. Does he come to the committee at our hearing tomorrow and give us the evidence that he took over to the White House, apologize for what he's done, and show that this committee can do the work that the American people are counting on us to do? Has
he acknowledged to any of you members of the committee that because he was a member of the Trump transition team, he needs to be extra careful and kind of extra above board in his dealings with this material? Has he recognized his own vulnerability here as a member of the Trump transition team and what that means as he goes forward in this investigation?
No, and there's always been an asterisk around his leadership because of his connections to the Trump team. But he did agree with our ranking member to follow the evidence. We had an open hearing this week where our concerns about the Trump-Russia ties personally, politically, and financially converged with Russia's attack on our campaign were validated by the FBI director confirming an investigation. But what he has done today, it's really, really setting us back, and the future is in peril. And so he has to divulge to us tomorrow at our 9 o'clock hearing just exactly what's going on.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.